fixing these road slides. I'm actually just sitting on the edge of what's left of the road here. And we've already got frost here. The municipality waited to do this until now. Wouldn't have mattered anyway. They want to just be able to get at least gravel, I guess, over top of these. I don't know if that's really going to be all that safe. But nobody really cares about road safety in Manitoba anyways, because that's why our roads are built out of crap. This is all heavy-duty gumbo country. For some reason, this stuff has quite a bit of gravel in it, so I don't know if there's a gravel seam or something nearby. But, so I'm trying to pull all this clay up. There's like no topsoil along here. This is a pretty major drain. And like a big ditch. That's what I mean by drain. And I don't know why I can't keep this thing level. Bought this ram mount a little while ago and it's really worked too well. And anyway, stuff keeps it sloughs in certain places, and it's always where the ditches are deep like this. And I figure the reason why it's doing that is because when they build these roads, they never had the ditches this deep. So none of that material that was, below the height of what they built and compacted. None of that material was compacted. There was no subgrade compaction really. And because they don't really like doing any compaction in Manitoba. And this area, the Red River Valley, is the bottom of a lake, a giant lake called Lake Agassiz. And all this material was deposited simply by gravity. The glaciers never sat on top of this material, compacting it like it did in areas like Edmonton and Calgary and Lethbridge and all those places. So when you get all those heavy rains and then roadsides become soft, they did stabilize and then they slough in. Now some of our bridge overpasses do that too, or as well. The head slopes on the overpasses, they will slough. I've worked on one before, and that's largely because they make the slopes too steep for that material, and they don't provide any subgrade drainage. Like what do they call them? Not sand channels, but wick drains. And there's quite a few overpasses where they didn't do that, and now they're paying the price for it. And that's pretty typical of how we build things in Manitoba. Spend $10 to save $1, do things as cheap as possible, and then when it completely fucks up, then maybe throw money at it. But even when it does do that, they'll just do another band-aid repair and say, oh, we have no money, it's so expensive to do. Well, if you don't repair it properly now, it's gonna just keep adding up. And that's the case we get with Highway 75. So this is kind of a classic example. They want to have all this land drainage. Farmers want their fields dry, blah, blah, blah. So ditches get dug deeper, but nothing else gets upgraded down the way. So look how much that slid in. That bottom should be about anywhere from 66 to 72 inches wide. And it's not. Maybe even wider than 72. So all of this stuff just kind of sloughed right in. And now things are freezing, and it's slippery to sit on a slope. I was almost sliding in over on the other side of this driveway to my left. So that stretch was a little bit easier. I was just peeling off stuff from the top and putting it up to where the crack goes, or where the crack runs along, and then kind of smearing it in with the bucket. And if I could sit on it good enough, then I track packed it. But here I won't be able to do that, and plus this stuff now that I'm pulling up is too damn wet. And that's pretty normal. You can see the water running there. This is a pretty big drain. The only places they put riprap was by these big culverts, which is stupid. the other thing they could have done is put riprap here. But how come I'm pulling up topsoil here now? Who in the fuck built these roads? I don't know, that always seems to be pretty typical here. Buried topsoil. I was working in a subdivision last year about this time in Steinbach, and I was doing 4-party trenching, so I'm not supposed to take any videos of that stuff. And anyway, so I was working for our big utility company here in Manitoba, and I start getting maybe halfway to the bottom of the trench that I'm digging, and I start pulling up black topsoil. Well, when they do some of the subdivisions, Winnipeg's the only example where they don't. But they, when they're digging their road grades and all that, all their spoils just go right on top of the topsoil. They don't even strip the topsoil before they do, before they put their sewer and water in. Like, there is no site prep done whatsoever, unless there's bush. Then maybe they might knock the trees over. Might. And that's considered okay. For some reason. I don't know who the engineers are that sign off on that, but that is not okay. So it'd be interesting to see what those houses are like in a few years. Probably nothing will happen, or maybe they'll just get tons of radon for all I know. But the houses themselves aren't sitting on the topsoil, but everything else is. Their driveways, their sidewalks, their yards are sitting on buried topsoil. So, you know, it's a pretty valuable resource. And they're just, we'll just bury it with whatever shitty mud we've got here. In Steinbach, there's lots of shitty mud. But the town of Winkler does it, Morden, Brandon, all those towns. And it's just freaking amazing. I'll put a bit here. I can't even really make a proper slope. Like, they just let these be so steep. Like, look at that. That's not even 1-to-1. That's almost straight up and down. So this is, if they don't do anything real to fix this, it's just going to keep on doing it. Every time there's a big heavy rainstorm, or maybe lots of snow melts. Buried topsoil. Bunch of freaking geniuses. So, break the ice here. I'm sorry, the camera's getting all jiggled around. Try and do a few videos, and every now and then, still working here. Might haul grain for the winter. A friend of mine drove truck for many years, and he's got some health issues that's keeping him out of doing it. Otherwise, he said he'd still be doing it. But for the year I've known him, he's always kind of going from one job to the next, chasing the almighty buck. Good guy, though. But he said the company he was working for was really good to work for, and I'm kind of interested in that, and I just want to do something a little bit different. I'm always in this old thing all the time, so it's not that I mind this machine. It just, you need change every now and then. Despite having bought my own little tractor to start doing little landscaping jobs and stump grinding, snow removal, or whatever, I'm still always in this thing all the time. Gotten what I think I can get out of the ditch there. I don't really want to dig it too much and then fuck up the grade and have too much water pooling up here. Because what they'll do when summertime comes, or at least I'm pretty sure in most spots what they're going to do, like just further up here, they're going to dig down to where the crack comes down, or where the crack is. They'll get down to the bottom of it, clean it up, and then if they've got any decently dry clay, which is always, then they'll start putting clay back in lifts and compacting it like they should have done in the first place. And Because really this isn't going to slide anymore until springtime, so they could have just went and dumped a bunch of gravel and brought it up to the height they wanted. But yeah, see now this is just going to be frost and shitty mud. So when the frost comes out, it'll slide down even more. Might even get even worse. Now, and I gotta try and make it look good. Typical words here in Manitoba. Make it look good. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't work and it falls apart again. You gotta spend another $10,000 or $20,000 to fix it. It just has to look good. I think I would have just hauled in a whole bunch of gravel, like sea base, which is like 1-inch crush. Water it so it freezes, so at least it's a nice hard surface. And then when things start thawing, then put the traffic cones around it so people don't drive through it. Because you know, once the frost comes out, then it's going to just slide again. But at least you've had it good enough that people could drive on it for the winter, and the graders could go over and plow the snow off properly. But apparently we might even get some of this work cleaning these up or fixing them. Since we're going to need some compaction equipment, and we don't have any. We used to have a Hopac for this thing, but he sold it. Hopac doesn't really work all that great in our soil unless you can get it really dry, and that's pretty tough. So I want to try and get a compactor wheel. We don't have to rent a sheep's foot packer. Maybe. Try to bust up some of these big lumps. Make a slope out of all this loon shit. Well, it's about -5 or -6 today, something like that. So it's a little bit easier to work in. But as the days go on, the frost will penetrate deeper and deeper, at least until we can get some significant snow. I'm not sure how high up he wants me to bring this up, but I'll do my best. This is how many of our rivers and creeks are formed. It just kind of undercuts and erodes, and then the slope drops. And there's a few ways of fixing it. Along the Red River, what they often do, and maybe even the Assiniboine, like in areas where you've got bridges close by and that sort of thing, is they get these big earth augers, these soil mechs, and they'll drill down to refusals, so until they hit glacial till, which is like big rocks and hard pan and stuff like that. And they'll drill right down, it could be like 30 meters, which is like 100 feet. And they'll drill down to that stuff. And if the ground is falling in, they put what they call cans in, which are usually chopped up rail cars. And they'll kind of hold the ground apart. And then they fill them up with 6-inch or -6-inch limestone, like crushed rock. And it's it's not really -6-inch, it's 6-inch clean, so it's got no fines in it, and they fill up those big deep holes with it, and they'll be kind of staggered down the length of the riverbank, for a given distance, and then they'll cap them off with some clay, loosely pack it, because it's winter time when they do that. You can't get down to the river bottom unless the ground is frozen, because it's that soft. And they'll cap it over with a bit of clay, and then they'll put down geotextile, and then haul in riprap, which is usually shot rock, like drilled and blasted limestone, because that's usually the best stuff available. And it's kind of neat because I worked with one company that did it a few years ago. They kind of took a lot of shortcuts and were pretty crooked, but it was also still perfecting my craft, I guess. At least I was being told. And now they'll bring another crane in, not only to lift those cans, but it'll have like a giant dildo hanging from it, this big vibrator. It'll vibrate that rock so it settles properly. There's a piece of riprap right there. And they'll vibrate that stuff down. I'll just toss it down, I don't need that anymore. They'll vibrate it so it consolidates nicely. Put that clay cap on. Put the geo on, and then they'll riprap with about 2 feet of, it's 12 to 18 inch riprap, something like that. And then usually what happens is as the river levels rise and drop over the years, they deposit silt in the riprap, and that's kind of what helps stabilize the shore. I'm not exactly sure what those rock caissons or rock pilings do for the ground, but it's something to do with putting friction into the ground. So it's kind of neat because they drill down really deep, you know, and these holes are 3-4 feet in diameter, so you know, about a meter and a half in diameter, and then they take like sometimes several truckloads or tractor trailer loads of limestone to fill up. So if you can get it for winter work, it's actually pretty cool. You got to make ramps and stuff down to the riverbank and make access for cranes and the big soil mech earth augers. They kind of look like a crane sort of thing or an excavator. Got a big tall straight boom, and then they've got this great big auger on the bottom. So the company I worked with, they had some homemade piece of junk unit that was pissing out hydraulic oil, and we're right by the river. It went tits up a few years ago from what I understand, so you're a union too, so we'll figure. But yeah, it was kind of a neat process. Just keep working for those scabby outfits like that, or sketchy outfits. So if anybody wants to give me any work for the winter, I'm open. So I'm not sure what's going to be going on here, and I kind of like to make some money. I need to pay off my visa and my tractor. Want to buy 1 or 2 more implements for my tractor. I'd like to get a set of pallet forks soon, and I'd like to get a different bucket. I'd like to get maybe a snow bucket or a higher capacity bucket, and probably a snow pusher maybe. I don't know, but I might get a disc or a cultivator, because I had a guy that called me this summer to actually go and rototill his kid's dirt bike track, and he said when it's dry you wouldn't get the rototiller in it, but he said some of these cultivator type attachments, ones with the ends I'm going to call shovels, whatever you want to call them, my father-in-law, who's a farmer, he calls it a deep tiller or something like that. Well, you can get little ones for smaller tractors, and he said that they actually work pretty good. He had one there, it was pretty shagged out there, but he said if I needed it I could use it. So I might try and get something like that for doing jobs like dirt bike tracks and that sort of thing. The rototiller is a pretty sweet unit though. It's gear driven, like it's driven from a PTO shaft, but it's got no belts or chains or anything. It says gears, which is awesome. Makes it far more robust. And I got a bush hog style mower. It's not the real heavy duty unit. It'll cut up to 1 inch. But man, does it do a nice job. I even use it for mowing my lawn and the neighbor's lawn a few times because it cuts that nice. So, and a finishing mower is one of the other things I'd like to get if I can afford it. So that's already like $6,000 right there. So yeah, I like having that little unit. It's kind of nice. Gets me out of the excavator for a while, and otherwise, like last year, my hands were just sore from running this thing all the time. We were so busy. This year's been a little more moderate. And there's talk about getting a new machine, possibly maybe a 20-ton machine. He's saying that, the boss is saying that Volvo even offered to let us demo try out a Volvo. I'm trying to get him to go for one with a full-on tilt rotator, like a steel wrist or an Encon. So, and they're set up, I guess, from the factory to take such an attachment. So that'd be pretty nice. I'm gonna keep the 160 because nobody will give us anything for it. It's got 82, almost 8,300 hours on it. It still runs good. We got pins and bushings done on it last year. I can already see the bucket pins already getting a bit loose there, so it needs some shimming. And I've got one that's always making a groaning sound. It doesn't matter how much grease I pump in it, it's always gonna groaning. Sometimes it goes away and other times it just keeps doing it. So I don't know why the hell it's like that, but I think it's one of the boom cylinder pins, but the boss said no, it's the one for the stick, the main pin for the stick, but I don't think so. I give it lots of grease, it doesn't really make any noise. I think it's just one of these boom pins is maybe a bit too tight or something, I don't know. So, and if we get that 20-ton unit, we're probably getting a mulcher for it too. I don't know if we're going to go with the normal brush cutter type like what we've got now. I'm hoping we go with the single, with the fixed tooth drum, like one of the LDM ones from Promac would be kind of nice because it got that little door on it, so I don't have to worry about spraying wood chips out into traffic or anything when I'm brushing beside a road. So, and it'll still be able to take down the bigger trees just like the brush cutter does. It's not quite as messy. So I'm hoping that's what happens, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if it does. If not, I'm still doing my tractor thing and I'm only going to get busier, I know that. So it'd be nice to have a little more steady work with it. And once that does start happening, then I'm going to probably end up buying my own excavator. I'm thinking about getting an 8-tonner. I just ran a rental one recently, a Kubota, and I liked it quite a bit. I just want to go with a full-on tilt rotator with it, and then I can do all sorts of different jobs with it. It's a nice size, just like this 160 is actually a really nice size for a lot of work we do. But I can't always do all the little jobs with it, so I kind of like to have something that's a little more portable or trailerable, whatever the word is, and go from there, I guess. A little bubble right there. Put some more frozen mud in the road. I might be able to pack that down a bit. Look how hard that is. This wristed twist, I complain about it sometimes. Like these Welco Beals ones are terrible for getting plugged up with mud. But with its long lip and the way it's the bottom of the bucket's shaped, it's actually really good for doing finished work like slopes and that. And even for picking up culverts, because yesterday I was running a bigger Kobelco, as you probably saw in my previous video, and it was hard to try and pick up that culvert. It just doesn't have enough lip on that AMI bucket. But this one I can always pick up, I can pick up most culverts I try, so it's kind of nice. I don't want to put that ice in here because this is going to make a mess. Not that I'm not making one already. Come on. Get out of there. Yeah. So, yeah. There we go. People need thumbs. Some people need thumbs to pick things up, but I just need a tilt bucket with a long lip on it. Or any bucket, really. I can pick up stuff pretty good with the tooth bucket if I wanted to. That shit I'll just put there for now. This will all freeze solid overnight. There'll be 3-4 inches of frost if it goes down to -20. finish this off before all the rush hour traffic starts. This shitty piece of frosting. Smash it up after. So I'm right by the city. I'm actually